Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk about the psychological and sociological uses of the color green in media and film through an intersectional lens. Essentially, we're going to answer the question, why is Elphaba green? And exactly why it's a perfect metaphor for racism as it functions in today's Western society. When we're looking at the color green, there are 4 things that this color can symbolize. These are natural, vitality, growth, and welfare. Natural refers to that of the earth as well as the season spring. This obviously comes from green being the most abundant color in nature. In Muslim cultures, paradise is synonymous with garden, which caused green to be a revered color. This is why it is in so many Middle Eastern flags. Some terms under the nature umbrella that green can represent include nature, fresh, youth, restoration, rejuvenation, renewal, refreshment, rebirth, and transformation or metamorphosis. Vitality refers to life, health, and harmony. This takes its roots in the nature theme and applies it to energy and how the greenest plants are the healthiest. This is also why green became associated with environmentally friendly movements. Keep the earth green, i.e. healthy. Some terms under the vitality umbrella that can be represented by green include balance, harmony, health, life, peace, equilibrium, and energy or charge. Think about what the color green battery means on your phone. Growth refers to the state of increasing. It also relates to the natural theme, but is applied to money and success. Some more terms for that include wealth, money, generosity, abundance, growth, luck, prosperity, productivity, fertility, creativity, etc., etc. And lastly, welfare refers to one's safety, security, and protection. Some terms that green encompasses or can represent under that umbrella include safety, stability, reliability, knowledge, and masculinity in certain ways. Green is a pretty neutral color, but if we're sorting the colors into masculine and feminine associations, it pulls more towards the masculine. In my observation, I found that colors often take on this duality, oscillating between different extremes of association, often reflecting human beings and their traits. In the case of green, the color can take on each of these positive themes, vitality, welfare, health, and growth, as well as the inverse or negative versions of them. With natural, poisons and toxins originally come from nature. A very popular example is the use of Scheele's green, which is a copper, hydrogen, and arsenite. Scheele's green was widely used at one time in wallpapers, paints, fabric, and other commodities because it is a vivid green and lasts well. It was often sometimes used as food coloring. However, arsenic is both toxic and carcinogenic, and the shade caused an unknown but great number of deaths. Another contributor to the association of green with poison is absinthe. Absinthe is a potent, anise-flavored spirit with a green hue, traditionally made from the botanicals like wormwood, fennel, and anise. Popular in 19th century Europe, particularly among artists and writers, absinthe gained a reputation for being psychoactive and dangerous due to the compound thujone found in wormwood. Though exaggerated, concerns about its effects, coupled with its vivid green color earning it the nickname the Green Fairy, fueled fears of poisoning and madness. The association of green with poison was amplified by absinthe's role in moral panic, its intoxicating potency, and its connection to hallucinatory myths, cementing green as a color linked to toxicity and danger in cultural symbolism. Green also symbolizes nuclear waste, which at first is a form of energy, but eventually becomes an example of the very natural process of decay. Additionally, green is the color of many insects and reptiles, including snakes, which can be poisonous, but is not a color naturally occurring in humans. So the color can represent non-human qualities. Lastly, we often refer to people who are naive, inexperienced, or immature as green, referring to the natural state of being a bud or unripe. So when it comes to the natural umbrella, the terms that green can represent on the flip side are decay, poison, toxic, inexperience, immaturity, naivete, solitude, like one who dwells in a forest is often alone, reptilian, and animal/non-human. With vitality, the opposite would be unwell. Even though human beings don't actually turn green, we refer to illness and sickness or the state of nausea in humans with this color. We also depict puke or throw up in the color green. Some terms we use to represent the color green that are the inverse of vitality are nauseous, sickness, illness, vile, puke. You get the idea. With growth, too much of a good thing is a bad thing. The obvious example of overgrowth in humans is cancer. But in referring to wealth and success, greed, envy, and jealousy are symbolized by seeing green, as well as materialism. We have Shakespeare to thank for the phrase green-eyed jealousy in The Merchant of Venice. Lastly, with welfare, although stop signs are symbolized with another color we will talk about more in its own video, as mentioned earlier, nuclear waste and its symptoms, something people are scared of, are both associated with green. It's also the main color of aliens as well as the unknown. An unknown and scary landscape is often dark, large forests that are also often magical in sometimes dangerous ways, but so is the wildlife itself, plants and animal alike. Additionally, from the 12th century, in the West, green became associated with the devil and demonic creatures, possibly due to the Crusades and the rising antagonism between Christianity and Islam, which, as previously stated, green is held in high regard. With its use in media and evil characters over and over again, green has become associated with scary, creepy, corrupted, and sinister characters. One could even say wicked. This is further juxtaposed with heroic characters embodying the traditional primary colors of red, yellow, and blue, and in contrast to villainous characters depicted in secondary colors, mainly purple and today's focus, green. However, the most insidious implications of green are in the characters that are not outwardly and obviously evil or bad. Including villain, there are 5 archetypes of characters that utilize a green-focused color palette. The rest being alien, animal/non non-human, angry or chaotic, and the outcast. Characters can take on the traits or embody more than one archetype and several characteristics associated with green. Briefly, some examples of the evil character or the villain with primarily green depictions are the Grinch, Mojo Jojo, the Riddler, the Joker, Swamp Thing, Plankton, Green Goblin, Poison Ivy, Slimer, She-Go, and the Wicked Witch of the West. However, Disney often portrays villains in other darker colors, but surrounds them and their magic in a lime green color. As stated before, green is traditionally the color of envy. Snow White's queen, Scar, Lady Tremaine, and Ursula are basically solely motivated by envy and resentment towards their respective princes and princesses. Maleficent's green fire is another example, as well as her being resentful of being this outcast and being upset with Aurora. I also want to highlight that the original Green Power Ranger, Tommy Oliver, was a bad guy working for Rita under an evil spell she cast on him to make him do what she wanted. As for the other Rangers, the website says the following. Possessing a rare wavelength of energy within the Morphin Grid, Green Rangers are the loners and the outsiders. They join with Ranger teams when they can, but still tend to work on the outside of operations and do so in a way to maintain the sanctity of the team concept. Green Rangers are ready for anything, whether they line up as part of the team or they stand alone against the forces of evil. Power Rangers RPG. The next 2 archetypes are alien and animal or non-human. The focus mainly is that these characters are not people or viewed as the same species as us. They are other. I also want to point out in American media, when a character is evil, sometimes they are depicted with a non-American, alien accent, often British. Some examples of characters that are either aliens or come from space are Gamora, Kangen Kodos, Buzz Lightyear, Yoda, Marvin the Martian, the Great Gazoo, and Martian the Manhunter. Additionally, Ben 10 and the Green Lantern get their powers from aliens or outer space. Examples of animal or non-human characters are Mike Wazowski, Beast Boy, Kermit the Frog, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Rex, Mr. Gus, Cecile Turtle, Yoshi, and Gumby. The next archetype are characters that struggle with anger or cause a lot of chaos. They are seen as troublesome and disorderly. The characters' plots often deal with them having to control themselves. The biggest example is the Hulk. The Hulk is a character that has to wrestle between his 2 sides. When he is out of control or angry, he becomes green and often destroys everything around him. She-Hulk is the same. Another example is Buttercup from the Powerpuff Girls, and her villain counterpart Butch from the Rowdy Rough Boys. Buttercup is known to be more violent than her sisters and enjoys fighting bad guys, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because she enjoys the physical part of fighting. All the Rowdy Rough Boys are bad guys, but Butch is particularly vicious and blood-hungry. One more example is Tinkerbell, a fairy known for her temper and to be jealous. Additionally, outside of a specific character, green moving or whirling symbolizes chaos, confusion, and disorder. The last archetype is the outcast. These are characters that are typically seen as bad or unconventional within their societies, or don't follow the status quo/right path. A good example are the ogres Shrek and Fiona. They're not only outcasted, the people are actually afraid of the ogres. Some more examples are Peter Pan, Robin Hood, and the Green Arrow. Peter Pan is a boy who didn't want to follow the adult rules. Robin Hood is a famous outlaw. Traditionally depicted in Lincoln green, Robin Hood is noted for his attribute of robbing the rich to distribute to the poor. The Green Arrow, funnily also an archer, is a vigilante of Star City. Where traditional heroes leave justice up to law enforcement and the judicial system, acting as an aid to the system, the Green Arrow is not afraid to utilize life-ending action to rid the streets of crime, something others do not view in a positive light. Having said all this, before we specifically speak about Elphaba, I want to talk about how this translates a little bit in real life. Sometimes when girls pick a favorite color, they choose it for all their accessories, and the colors can become associated with a particular aesthetic. Green has become attached to this earthy aesthetic, and earthy girls are seen as feminine, but woo-woo and not scientific, more spiritual, witchy and dangerous vibes outside of society. This is one of the few aesthetics that is overwhelmingly represented by Black women and girls. The original Wizard of Oz was a novel written by L. Frank Baum and published May 17, 1900. Baum's original Wicked Witch of the West did not have green skin and was described as an old woman with 3 pigtails and 1 eye. However, the 1939 film reinvented the character, giving her green skin as well as all the Winkies. This implies her green skin comes from her being of a different species. The filmmakers possibly made this decision due to the film's use of Technicolor. Baum's original character is quite tame in comparison to later versions, and there's no clear indication that she desires harm come to Dorothy, although she is still considered to be wicked. The 1939 film expands the role of the Wicked Witch of the West greatly, evolving her personality along with it. The character is much more wicked than she is in Baum's novel, threatening the lives of Dorothy and her companions frequently. The witch's motivation appears to be nothing more than naked power, reinforced by her cruel actions when attempting to acquire the powerful ruby slippers. Additionally, although her actions definitely make her a villain, it is her physical attributes that cause characters to view her as wicked. Her green skin, warts, and overall ugliness frighten the citizens of Oz. She's wicked because she looks wicked. Glinda the Good Witch says, quote, "Only bad witches are ugly. If the Wicked Witch of the West was as beautiful as Glinda, she may have been less feared, even with her actions." Then, Gregory Maguire's novel, Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West, was published in 1995. Gregory Maguire saw the depictions of the Wicked Witch and realized that her green skin is a wonderful allegory for race and skin color. Elphaba is the protagonist in the eyes of the audience, although many of the characters see her as evil. Wicked explores how the character became known as wicked, but also portrays her as a compassionate animal rights activist, though she does have flaws, shifting between violence and charity. Wicked the musical's first performance was June 10th, 2003, and has remained on Broadway since. It is a lot lighter than the novel, therefore so is the character. She's still compassionate and charitable, but her relationships are the forefront of the story, particularly her friendship with Glinda. I want to talk about the intentional and specifically color choices made both times these stories were taken from a written medium to a visual medium more in depth than another video. So what attributes of green and making Elphaba green enhance the racial metaphor? Black people are seen as another race of humans. And while socially Black people are of the Black race, race is a social construct. Many people believe that there is a genetic difference between the races, that race is based in science, when in fact the opposite is true. Scientists have been unable to find even one genetic trait that separates the races. There is more genetic variation within the races than between them, and Black people are actually the most genetically diverse. Every human trait possible can be found in every race because there is one human race. The phenotypic differences between humans developed over time to adapt to various climates around the globe. But there's a social understanding of attaching certain phenotypes to certain races. The invalidity of this is made more obvious by the different definitions of race and how it varies across the globe. There are no races, we made it up. This is embodied through green by both the outcast and non-human archetypes and how Black people are dehumanized and marginalized. Additionally, in American media, anything seen as not the average white American is other. We quite literally refer to immigrants as aliens. And this is why I brought up the use of non-American accents. In horror and sci-fi, aliens are beings we are scared of coming and invading and harming things as we know it. We also view non-native vegetation as invasive species, and while this may be true in plants, not people. Refer back to how other races and the color green are dehumanized. Hispanic immigrants bear the brunt of this harmful stereotype, but make no mistake, it harms Black people as well. Things like affirmative action and diversity, equity, and inclusion are attacked because white people see it as Black people coming and taking their rightful places, opportunities, and jobs. They will say things like, "What more do you people want?" when implying we are greedy for what doesn't belong to us. Another way Black people are dehumanized is the view of us being angry, violent, and more animalistic, aligning with the last two archetypes. In fact, Princess Tiana, the only African-American Disney princess, has a predominantly green color palette and is a frog for a majority of the movie. The angry black woman is a trope present both in the media and weaponized in real life. This implication is harmful to the point of endangering black people to police brutality and loss of life, all because of skin color. Tying this all back to Wicked, Elphaba's narrative portrays many of these traits flawlessly. She is immediately rejected for the color of her skin, but that is just the most obvious of the implications. When she arrives at Shiz University, she is ostracized, not just because of her skin, but because she has something Galinda wants. She is a naturally very powerful witch that was signaled out by Madame Morrible. Despite her outward bravado and sarcastic personality, deep down Elphaba does wish to fit in. Oftentimes, black people will assimilate in an attempt to do so. Therefore, she's excited to study with Madame Morrible because she hopes to meet the Wizard of Oz and asks him to degreenify her. Morrible constantly tells her that if she can learn to control her power, she will accomplish everything she always dreamed of. Elphaba's power is linked to her emotions, so it's again another trope of her learning to control herself and her feelings. Later, she meets Dr. Dilliman and learns what's happening with the animals and the efforts to contain them and stop them from speaking. Elphaba, having been ostracized her whole life and raised by animals, empathizes immediately. An exchange student, Fiyero, arrives, and Glinda immediately takes an interest in him that is at first reciprocated, but when he helps Elphaba save a baby lion, he develops feelings for Elphaba, but she doubts a boy like him could ever like a girl like her. I also want to note, Fiyero asks Elphaba, "Why is it that every time I see you, you're causing some sort of commotion?" Elphaba says, "I don't cause commotions, I am one." Black people fighting for their rights or protesting is seen as an inconvenience and a disruption of day-to-day life. They want people to be quiet and remain compliant, and this is seen in Elphaba's character through the anger or chaos trope. Morrible tells Elphaba that the Wizard of Oz wants to meet her, and she goes with Galinda, now Glinda, to the Emerald City. The two meet the wizard and are surprised to discover that he has no power. After being tricked into enchanting the wizard's monkey's servants to sprout wings in a very painful manner, Elphaba realizes that the wizard is behind the suppression of animal rights and speech and is a fraud who uses politics and lies to stay in power. The wizard says, quote, "The best way to bring folks together is to give them a real good enemy." This is how the system and those who uphold them remain in power. They don't have any real power. It's the narratives they promote that keep them in power. I will also talk about this more in another color psychology video. Elphaba runs away from his chambers while Glinda begs her to just apologize. Elphaba refuses and declares she must do what's right, but she asks Glinda to come with her. Glinda declines, and the friends say goodbye before Elphaba enchants the broom and flies away. Now, they know if she exposes the wizard that they would be in trouble, so they immediately weaponize her marginalization and her power, claiming she tortured the monkey. Madame Morrible says, quote, "Her green skin is an outward manifestation of her twisted nature," and tells the people not to listen to a thing she says. On TikTok, I saw a video from the creator @VarenQueEsther talking about how after the movie, she was talking with this white dad. He said that it's really interesting how the person that doesn't have power is only pretending to have power, but then the person that actually has power is forcing that power on people who didn't ask for it. This shows that when white people, especially white men, see black people and other marginalized communities using their power of voice and support for other communities, they see it as us forcing our power on people who never asked for it. They see power as something to be hoarded, only to be useful for your own gain and not to be shared. They don't criticize a man only pretending to have power through his authority, but criticize her for forcing it on others. They see power as authority, not necessarily ability. Authority lies only in getting others to do something or to move on your behalf, whereas ability is actually being able to do something. True power is both ability and authority. I will also talk about this more in another color analysis video. The irony of this is that the wizard was more than happy to use Elphaba's power if she cooperated, but would take all the credit. If Elphaba could control herself and her emotions, she could have grown in their corrupt system. Glinda exclaims, quote, "Why couldn't you control yourself for once?" and then later tells her, quote, "Maybe she's not as powerful as she thinks she is." Now, a large chunk of this narrative lies in Galinda/Glinda, but before I can do pink, I have to do red. So, if you want to continue exploring these social and psychological implications of color in ways you never have before, like this video, hit subscribe, and click on the notification bell. Red is next. My name is ugoezeoo, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time.